Hi, fifth graders. Today I want to take a look at one kind of word problem you might see with decimal numbers, and that type is a decimal pattern question. And decimal pattern questions are really just adding or subtracting questions in disguise. So let's take a look at an example of a decimal pattern question so you can see how one might be written. This example reads, a state park rents canoes for guests to use at a lake. It costs $5 to rent a canoe for 1 hour, $6.75 to rent a canoe for 2 hours, $8.50 to rent a canoe for 3 hours, and $10.25 to rent a canoe for 4 hours. If this pattern continues, how much will it cost Jason to rent a canoe for 7 hours? Okay, so that mental movie is very clear for this question. I see this boy Jason, and he's got his wallet out, and he's trying to figure out how much it's going to cost him to rent a canoe for the full day or for 7 hours. Now, let's go line by line to get the pieces of math information we need to help solve this question. The first sentence reads, a state park rents canoes for guests to use at a lake. This is great background information, but it's not going to help me solve for the actual final cost. So let's keep reading. Now, the next sentence has a lot of different parts, so I'm going to choose to stop at each comma to look more closely for math information. The first part reads, it costs $5 to rent a canoe for 1 hour. So that tells me if Jason only wanted the canoe for 1 hour, it would cost him $5. But since he wants for 7, let's keep reading to get more information. The next part of the sentence says, it costs $6.75 to rent a canoe for 2 hours. So now I know that the price is increasing. So it's $5 for 1 hour, but it gets a little bit more expensive, up to $6.75 for 2 hours. The next part of the sentence tells me it cost $8.50 to rent a canoe for 3 hours. So again, I'm getting a little bit more expensive. And $10.25 to rent a canoe for 4 hours. So that whole sentence told me that every time I add an hour of time on, my rental price increases a little bit. Now, finally, the question sentence asks, if this pattern continues, how much will it cost Jason to rent a canoe for 7 hours? So that question sentence confirms to me that the gaps between each of the prices for the different hours is going to be consistent because it said that this is a pattern. So in order to solve this question, I have to first find what the pattern is. So my first step is going to be to write the terms, which is just another way of saying write down the numbers that we know and leave blanks for the terms we're trying to find. So I know that Jason wants to rent this canoe for 7 hours. I'm going to list a line for each of those 7 hours. And I know the price for 1, 2, 3, and 4 hours of rental. The first hour cost $5. The second hour would be $6.75. To rent for 3 hours is $8.50. And to rent for 4 hours is $10.25. And I got that right from this second sentence that's made up by the blue, pink, purple, and orange underlines. Now I need to figure out the rule for our sequence or our list of numbers. And the rule has two different parts to it. We first need to know if we're getting bigger or smaller, because that tells us if we add or subtract. And then we need to know by how much are we getting bigger or smaller. This will be the number part of our rule. So to figure out the rule, you're going to look between two different numbers. And sometimes you'll have to do the math to solve this, and other times you'll be able to look between two numbers and solve the problem in your head. For example, if I look at the difference between 1 hour and 2 hours of rental, I can see that the price is increasing. So my rule means that I'm adding because my amount each time becomes greater. And if the cost goes from $5 to $6.75, that's a pretty easy one for me to do using mental math. I know that the rule for this particular pattern means that every hour of rental adds $1.75 onto the price. because the difference between $5 and $6.75 is an additional $1.75. So I can check that rule for each of the other jumps. If I add $1.75 to $6.75, that will give me $8.50. And if I add $1.75 again, that gets me $10.25. So I've confirmed that that rule works for the first 3 steps of our pattern. Now, in order to figure out the cost for 7 hours, I need to extend that sequence and solve the problem for the term that we need to find. In other words, I need to keep adding $1.75 until I get to the 7 hours. So $10.25 plus $1.75 means that to rent a canoe for 5 hours, it will cost $12. And then if I add $1.75 again, to rent a canoe for 6 hours would cost $13.75. To add $1.75 again would get me my total of $15.50, which will be the cost that it would be to rent a canoe for 7 hours. So finally, we can answer the question by saying it would cost $15.50 to rent a canoe for 7 hours. So pattern questions are just adding or subtracting in disguise. And that second step where you find your rule is going to be the key for these kinds of questions. So don't forget to ask yourself, are you getting bigger or smaller, to decide if you're adding or subtracting? And then by how much? Because that tells you what your jump needs to be each time. We'll do lots more questions that look like this, but hopefully this example gave you a good idea of what kinds of words and phrases to look for when you're recognizing decimal pattern questions. Have a great day, everyone.